Yes. Yasashaha.
Yashasaha.
Kushalaha.
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 Rasagya.
Rasagya.
Okay. Natyantikam viganayan yapite prasadam.
Natyantikam viganayantyapite prasadam.
Kim vanyararpita bhayam bhuva unayaste.
Kim vanyararpita bhayam bhruva annayaste.
Yangatvat angri sarana bhavata katayaha.
Ying tvargangri sharana bhavata katayaha.
Okay, sorry. Kirtanya tirta. How you say yashaha?
Yashasaha.
Yashashaha.
No, Yashasa, not Yashasa. Yashasa.
Yashasa kushala rasagya.
Kirtanya Tirtha Yashasa Kushala Rasagya.
Nadyantikam viganayantyapite prasadam.
Natyantikam Viganayantyapite
Prasad.
Kim vanyararpita bhayam bhuva unayaste.
Kim
Vanyararpidhavayam Bhruva Annayaiste.
Yangatvarangri sarana bhavata katayaha.
Yingatvaram
Yangatodhangasharana Bhavata Kathaya.
Kirtanya tirta yasasha kushala rasagya.
Kirtanya
Tirtha Yashasa
Tirtanya
Kushala
Kusala
Rasagya.
Rasagya.
Nadyantikam vigana nayantyapite prasadam.
Natyantikam
Viganayantyapite Prasadam.
Kim vanya arpita bhayam bhuva unayaste.
Kevanyararpita Bhayam Bhruva Unnayaste.
Yangatvat angri sarana bhavata katayaha.
Yingatvaram Grisharana
Datvarangasharana
Bhavata
Bhavata
Kathayaha.
Kathaya.
Kirtanya tirta yashasha kushala rasagya.
Kirtanya
Kirtanya
Kirta Yashasa
Tirtha
Kushala
Kusala
Rasagya.
Rasagya. Natyantikam Viganayantyapite Prasadam.
Natyantikam Viganayantyapite Prasadam.
Yam Vanyatarpitarbhayam Bhruva Unnayaste.
Kim vanyararpita bhayam bhuva unayaste.
Yengatvarangrisharana Bhavata Kathaya.
Yangatvat angri sarana bhavata katayaha.
Tanya Tirtha Yashasah Kushala Rasagyaha.
Kirtanya tirta yashasa kushala rasagya.
Natyantikam Viganayantyapite Prasadam.
Naryantikam vigayantyapite
Yantyapite Prasadam.
prasadam.
Kim Vanyararpita Bhayam Bhruva
Kim
Unnayaste.
vanyararpita bhayam bhuva
Unnayaste.
unayaste.
Yingatvarangri Sharana Bhavata Kathayaha.
Yangatvat angri sarana
Varangrisharana
bhavata
Bhavata
katayaha.
Kathaya.
Kirtanya Tirtha Yashasah Kushala Rasagyaha.
Kirtanya
Tanya
tirta
Tirtha
yashasa
Yashasah
kushala
Kushala
rasagya.
Rasagyaha.
Okay, word for word na, not.
Not.
Adyantikam,
Atyantikam.
Yantikam.
liberation.
Liberation.
Viganayanti,
Viganayanti.
care for.
Care for.
Api,
Api.
even.
Even.
Te,
Te.
those.
Those.
Prasadam,
Prasadam.
benedictions.
Benedictions.
Kimu,
Kimu.
what to speak.
What to speak.
Anyat,
Anyat.
other material happinesses.
Other material happinesses.
Arpita,
Arpita.
given.
Given.
Bhayam,
Bhayam.
fearfulness.
Fearfulness.
Bruvaha,
Dhruvaha.
of the
Of
eyebrows.
the eyebrow.
Unayai,
Udayayi.
by the rising.
By the reason.
Raising. Te,
Te.
your.
Your.
Ye,
Ye.
those devotees.
Those devotees.
Anga,
Anga.
O Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Also bring personality of God.
But
What?
your.
Your.
Angri,
Angry.
lotus feet.
Lotus feet.
Saranaha,
Sharanaha.
who have taken shelter.
Who have taken shelter.
Bhavataha,
Bhavataha,
your.
your.
Katayaha,
Katayaha,
narrations.
narrations.
Kirtanya,
Kirtanya,
worth chanting.
worth chanting.
Kirta,
Kirta,
pure.
Pure.
Yasaha,
Yashasaha,
glorious.
glory.
Kushalaha,
Kushala,
very expert.
very expert.
Rasagya,
Rasagya,
knowers of the mellows or humors.
knowers of the mellows or humors.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki
Jai
Jai.
Prabhupada.
Persons who are very expert and most intelligent in understanding things as they are engage in hearing narrations of the auspicious activities and pastimes of the Lord, which are worth chanting and worth hearing. Such persons do not care even for the highest material benediction, namely liberation, to say nothing of other less important benedictions like the material happinesses of the heavenly kingdom. Purport. The transcendental bliss enjoyed by the devotees of the Lord is completely different from the material happiness enjoyed by less intelligent persons. The less intelligent persons in the material world are engaged by the four principles of benediction called Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Generally, they prefer to take to religious life to achieve some material benediction, the purpose of which is to satisfy the senses. When by that process they become confused or frustrated in fulfilling the maximum amount of sense enjoyment, they try to become one with the Supreme, which is according to their conception mukti or liberation. There are 5 kinds of liberation, the least important of which is called sayujya, to become one with the Supreme. Devotees don't care for such liberation because they are actually intelligent, nor are they inclined to accept any of the other 4 kinds of liberation, namely to live on the same plane as the Lord, to live with Him side by side as an associate, to have the same opulence, and to attain the same bodily features. They are concerned only with glorifying the Supreme Lord and His auspicious activities. Pure devotional service is Shravanam Kirtanam. Pure devotees who take transcendental pleasure in hearing and chanting glories of the Lord do not care for any kind of liberation. Even if they are offered the 5 liberations, they refuse to accept them as stated in the Bhagavatam in the third canto. Materialistic persons aspire for the sense enjoyment of heavenly pleasure in the heavenly kingdom, but devotees reject such material pleasure at once. The devotee does not even care for the post of Indra. A devotee knows that any pleasurable material position is subject to be annihilated at a certain point. Even if one reaches the post of Indra, Chandra, or any other demigod, he must be dissolved at a certain stage. A devotee is never interested in such temporary pleasure. From Vedic scriptures, it is understood that sometimes even Brahma and Indra fall down, but a devotee in the transcendental abode of the Lord never falls. This transcendental stage of life in which one feels transcendental pleasure in hearing the Lord's pastimes is also recommended by Lord Chaitanya. When Lord Chaitanya was talking with Ramananda Roy, there were varieties of suggestions offered by Ramananda Roy regarding spiritual realization, but Lord Chaitanya rejected all but one, that one should hear the glories of the Lord in association with pure devotees. That is acceptable for everyone, especially in this age. One should engage himself in hearing from pure devotees about the activities of the Lord. That's considered the supreme benediction of mankind.
Hello. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dino Madhoti Gapate Namo Om Vishubhadaya Krishna Prasai Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Iti Namine Bhuvijay Vikaso Bhakti Koyo Itendra Namo Om Vishubhadaya Krishna Prasai Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharne Nirvasisha Srinivadi Pasha Chadeshi Tarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi
Gaur
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Alright, I'm going to read the verse one more time. Persons who are very expert and most intelligent in understanding things as they are engage in hearing narrations of the auspicious activities and pastimes of the Lord, which are worth chanting and worth hearing. Such persons do not care even for the highest material benediction, namely liberation, to say nothing of other less important benediction like the material happiness of the heavenly kingdom. So when I first read this verse, the first thing I saw was the word expert. And one word for expert is daksha. You know, Daksha, as we all know, is expert at having sex, right? So I was just reading the sixth canto how Daksha, um, he and Narada Muni have a schism. They have a problem. Daksha wants his sons to be great materialists and be great grihastas, you know, perform tapasya, and after that, he wanted him to go into the household ashram. But Narada Muni he took advantage of their austerities and instructed them to, you know, completely reject the material world and just become purely fixed and transit service of the Lord. So Prabhupada makes the point that both Narada Muni and Daksha were both expert. You know, Daksha is expert at material sense enjoyment, while Narada Muni is expert at glorification of the Lord and imparting this knowledge to others, right? And you see how both of them, although they're expert, their expertise leads them into different conclusions. Why? Because you look in this translation of today's word for word. I mean the verse. It says that persons who are expert and most intelligent. So ultimately, you have to be expert and intelligent, as this verse is saying, to even engage in hearing or appreciate the hearing and the hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord. You can be expert, right? But if you're not intelligent, then what happens is your expertise leads you in the wrong direction, as you see with Daksha. Daksha, ultimately, he couldn't appreciate the fact that Narada Muni was trying to liberate his sons. He couldn't appreciate the fact that Narada Muni. So in one purport in sixth canto, Prabhupada writes that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that Narada Muni, and he delivered the entire family a Swayambhuva Manu, beginning with Priyavata Unutanapad. And as we know, so Daksha got his head cut off in the sacrifice because he offended Lord Shiva. But then when he took birth again, he took birth actually as the son of Prashina Bari, so Prashina Bari, the Prashetas are descendants of him, and Daksha took birth from them. And this is all in the sixth canto. Anyways, the point I'm making is that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that he was able to, Narada Muni was able to liberate everybody in that family except for Daksha. That's crazy, right? Everybody in that family was liberated but Daksha. Why? Because Daksha's intelligence was fixed on material gratifications. His intelligence was not fixed on the service of the Lord. And because of his intelligence was not fixed, he was ultimately led to commit an offense. Well, ultimately, Narada Muni he was offended by Narada Muni and he cursed Narada Muni. However, Narada Muni has accepted the curse. This is the nature of a sadhu. But in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about the importance of this fixed intelligence. And Bhagavad Gita, His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj quotes this verse in his Vyasa Puja. It's Bhagavad Gita 5:20. It's na parishit priyam prapya no jujet prapya cha priyam stira buddhir samudo brahmavit brahmani sitaha. So this stira buddhir, this is translated as self-intelligence. So Srila Prabhupada writes in that purport that to be self-intelligent ultimately just means that you're not the body or spirit soul, right? And when this becomes steady, you become Brahmastitaha, you become fixed in Brahman, you become fixed in transcendence. But as long as your intelligence is not steady, you're always going to be allured by the prostitute of your intelligence. Actually, in the 6th canto, Prabhupada in one purport he says that unsteady intelligence is compared to a prostitute, right? Because a prostitute is always carried here or there by one man or another. Similarly, intelligence is not fixed on the lowest fear of the Lord. It's considered like a shameless prostitute, right? Because this intelligence ultimately is what carries our so it mentions how the intelligence is the next door neighbor, the spirit soul. So when our intelligence is fixed on the lowest fear of the Lord, we can always remain fixed in the service of the Lord. But Vyasa Vasayana Buddha, that when our intelligence is fixed on the service of the Krishna, then we can be steady in Krishna consciousness. But when our intelligence is not fixed, we fall down. It becomes mini branched. So in this verse that we're speaking on today, it mentions how those who are expert, and you need both. You need to have steady intelligence to fully appreciate the narrations of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the association of devotees. If you don't, you will become like Daksha. You can become expert in chanting slokas. You become expert in playing the mridanga. You can become expert in even giving classes. But if your intelligence is not fixed, you become just like Daksha. You become some gross materialist. Ultimately, Daksha is a sadhu. And Prabhupada writes that Daksha is a sadhu because Krishna personally came to him. Krishna lived, so Daksha performed austerities for the purpose of begetting children. That was his duty. That Krishna empowered him to do so. However, because his intelligence wasn't fixed, he became attached to the material concept of life. So it's interesting. One can become a sadhu and still be attached to materialism, right? So ultimately, different degrees of being a sadhu. A saintly person, a sadhu is it's very wide. This word sadhu can encompass a lot. But in the sixth canto, Prabhupada specifically writes, I can pull it up if you guys don't believe me, that Daksha is a sadhu, right? He's a sadhu because he got darshan of the Lord. However, he became bewildered by his intelligence. So similarly, us, although we're practicing Krishna consciousness, although we're trying to become fixed in the service of the Lord, because our intelligence is not fixed in understanding that we're servants of the Lord, we become bewildered. Our intelligence becomes mini branch. So, how do we become fixed in our intelligence? We become fixed in our intelligence by constant hearing and chanting. So knowledge. What is knowledge? Knowledge can encompass what? Knowledge of the body, knowledge of the spirit, soul, right? But to apply that to actually for bhakti, specifically for bhakti, is not just understanding it, but you have to apply it. You can read all the books of Prabhupada, right? You can associate it even with devotees. But if you do not apply this knowledge, then your intelligence will always become deviated. You apply this knowledge by, Prabhupada says, 24 hours a day chanting and hearing. And in this verse is mentioned the glories of chanting, the glories of hearing. Why is it that chanting and hearing is so relishable? Why does it give the highest happiness? Prabhupada makes this point in this verse that it gives you the real happiness. In the Bhagavad Gita 14:20, it is mentioned what's that verse? Gunan Etanati Chanchan Deha Samud Bhavan. That I'll just read the translation. This is 14:20 in the Bhagavad Gita. Gunan Etanati Chanchan Deha Samud Bhavan. Let's see, 14:20 in the Bhagavad Gita. What's the rest of the verse? Okay, so it's right here. Yeah, Guna Etanati Chanchan Deha Samud Bhavan. Janma Mrityu Jara Dukar Vimukto Mritam Asnute. So the translation: when the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become freed from birth, death, old age, and the distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, you study the Bhagavad Gita, there's certain, I might it might be approximate, but you could say maybe 1/3, 1/4 of the Bhagavad Gita is talking about the three modes of material nature, right? It's stressed so throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Three modes of material nature is stressed in the second chapter, third chapter, fourth chapter, fifth chapter. Most of the chapters they have something talking about three modes of material nature, right? Because these modes of material nature. Because as long as we are entrapped by the three modes of material nature, we cannot enjoy, as this verse is saying, we cannot enjoy nectar in this life. We cannot enjoy the nectar of Harikata. We cannot enjoy the nectar of Harikata as long as we are associated with the three modes of material nature, right? And but those who are exhausted with the material modes of nature, for them it becomes nectar. It becomes these descriptions of the Bhagavatam, chanting and hearing. It becomes relishable. It becomes nectar, right? But we are so enchanted by the nectar of happiness and mode of passion. I'll quote this verse all the time with you, Abigail. Now I'm forgetting, bro. Nectar in the mode of passion. What's the word? Nectar in the mode and poison in the end. Oh Krishna. It's in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Bro, how am I forgetting this? I quote this all the time. Anyways, the happiness in the material world is like nectar in the beginning and poison in the end. Vysaya samyoga yatat agre matopamam parinama vishamiva satsukam rajasam smritam. That happiness in the material world is like that. It's like nectar in the beginning with poison in the end. But the happiness of chanting and hearing is nectar all throughout. Although in the next verse it talks about in the 18th chapter talks about how happiness and mode of goodness is like poison in the beginning, nectar in the end. This is still in the modes of material nature. But ultimately, transcendental nectar is happiness throughout. It's happiness from the beginning and the end. So, but as long as we're associated with the modes of material nature, we cannot fully appreciate this nectar. We cannot understand what this real happiness is. In this verse, Prabhupada talks about those gross materialists who foolishly try to find happiness in material sense enjoyment, like Daksha. Those materialists, they might even be in the guise of a sadhu, but they're still searching after the happiness of what Pratishta. And the Mana Shiksha by Raghunath Goswami, he compares Pratishta like an outcast woman. What does he say? No, he says a shameless dog eating woman. He compares Pratishta and this Mana Shiksha as a shameless dog eating woman. And this Pratishta is ultimately what's causing us, even after we come to the Krishna consciousness, although we're engaging, we might even be engaging seemingly 24 hours a day. But this Pratishta is causing us to not fully relish the bliss of Krishna consciousness. And that's why he compares to a shameless dog-eating woman. It's so abominable, so low. It's so low. You see a dog-eating woman in the street, you show no respect to it. But yet we show this Pratishta so much respect. We give it so much regard. It's the last snare of mine. It's hard to get over this Pratishta. I think Mahospur was making that point. How you can be advanced in understanding not the body. You can be advanced in in spiritual knowledge. But the last snare of Maya for sannyasis, I think he was making the point, is Pratishta. So there's real happiness. As long as we have this Pratishta, we can't really fully relish the real happiness of chanting Hare Krishna. We can experience some of it, but ultimately, where is this happiness coming from? Not to get too esoteric, but the Supreme Lord has three different energies. He has different Shaktis on the transcendental platform. He has the Haladini Shakti, the Samvit Shakti, and the Sadini Shakti. The Samvit Shakti is the knowledge, and Sadini is like eternality, and then the Haladini Shakti, though, this is the pleasure potency of the Supreme Lord. But when this Prabhupada writes that when this pleasure potency of the Supreme Lord becomes covered with the desire to enjoy, it becomes perverted in the material world by sex enjoyment, right? This Haladini Shakti, though, is what is being spoken of in this verse that we just read today. It talks about the real happiness of the spiritual world, the real happiness of chanting and hearing. This is on the Haladini Shakti. And through this Haladini Shakti, this is how the Jiva and the Supreme Lord can actually so the Supreme Lord relishes bliss by being glorified. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita is mentioned how Swarup Damodar Goswami, how when he sung the glories of the Lord, when he chanted Hare Krishna, Lord Chaitanya became so happy. And it's mentioned how the senses of Lord Chaitanya and Swarup Damodar were one. And when I first read that, I was like, what? Like, how is this? Like, this is my body? It's like, I never read the other way. What? Like, the senses of, it says this. It says the senses of Swarup Damodar and Lord Chaitanya are one. And it took me a minute to try to understand what this meant. But ultimately, it's because the Haladini Shakti is, the base of the Haladini Shakti is that the senses of the Lord and the Jiva become one. And the Lord enjoys by the devotee chanting his glories, and the by as the Lord is getting enjoyment, the jiva gets a byproduct of that enjoyment. But this is all, like I said, this is all in transcendental platform. So this real happiness is coming from the Heladini Shakti, but like I said, this Heladini Shakti is getting perverted in the material world by sex enjoyment. It's not that Prabhupada says there is some happiness in the material world. There's some happiness. Why else would people strive for it? But it's like so minuscule, so small. So in the Bhagavad Gita 10:9, it talks about the happiness of the devotees. It talks about how the devotees, they can relish this happiness of chanting the Lord's glories. This is in the Chatur Shloki of the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm so ignorant I don't have it memorized. Is it 10:9? Yeah, 10:9. Yeah, Makshita Mat Kata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Katayanta Chamam Nityam Tushanti Cham Ramanti Cha. That the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. This is exactly what's mentioned in this verse today in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That the devotees, they get immense bliss and satisfaction by always enlightening one each other and conversing about Krishna. This is the highest level of happiness, you know. And in that purport, Prabhupada writes, in the preliminary stage of devotional service, devotees relish transcendental pleasure from the service itself, right? And the mature stage, they're actually situated in love of God. So this is kind of confusing. So pretty much what Prabhupada is saying is that in preliminary stage of Insana Bhakti, devotees might get some pleasure in, eating prashadam, and then, they chant the rounds, they get some pleasure. This is the preliminary stage, but ultimately, the real pleasure is when you're undeviated, when your intelligence is fixed on Krishna. You can't help but think of Krishna 24 hours a day. This is the description of pure devotees. Mother Yashoda, the cowherd boys, they're fully engaged in thinking about Krishna 24/7. This is the perfection of Krishna consciousness, right? And they don't necessarily like chant Hare Krishna, but they're always conversing about. Mother Show is always talking about Krishna. The cowherd boys are always talking about Krishna. The gopis are always talking about Krishna, right? This is the perfection. They're always remembering Krishna, but because we're so tinged with this materialism, we chant Hare Krishna. We have to bang our minds just to remember Krishna just throughout the day. That's why we're chanting. We're chanting so we can remember Krishna. That is the point. The point is to remember Krishna. That's the point. And you see that in this verse today, it talks about the devotee in the transit abode of the Lord never falls, right? So in the last verse of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Papa writes in the purport that there's no difference between devotional service to the Lord and the kingdom of God, right? When I first read that, I was like pretty enamored, like, wow, that's amazing. And why? Because devotional service, the kingdom of God, there is an abode, right? However, when you chant the Lord's glories purely, he manifests Vrindavan in front of you. Srila Prabhupada, wherever he went, he was in Vrindavan. It wasn't that, Prabhupada fell from Vrindavan, and it wasn't. Although Prabhupada seemingly was in the material world, he was always in Vrindavan consciousness. And for the pure devotees, they can always constantly remember Krishna 24 hours a day. Why? Because they're seeing Krishna, they're associating with Krishna through the holy name. And this holy name is so potent, so powerful. People ask His Holiness Bhakti because Swami Maharaj all the time, like, okay, I have this problem, what do I do? I have this problem, what do I do? He just says, just chant Hare Krishna. Just chant Hare. If you listen to his lectures, it's always amazing. He gives the same response all the time, just chant Hare Krishna. This is a solution to your problems, right? But because you have no faith in it, you become, you don't think that this has any effect, and you think you need to make some other material adjustment, like maybe I have to do this, I have to do this. Just chant Hare Krishna, associate devotees. That is the process. By following that process, but the thing is, Prabhupada writes that Bhakti Yoga encompasses knowledge and austerity. You have to practice both, right? And naturally, when you practice Bhakti, knowledge naturally fructifies, and austerity naturally fructifies, but that doesn't mean that you don't practice it. And that's like, okay, I'm practicing Bhakti Yoga, I don't need to read, I don't need to practice austerity. No, although they are their byproducts, you still have to practice knowledge and austerity. So you see, in the verse it says that devotees who are always chanting the Lord's glories, they never fall down, right? Right? But then you see so many Star Wars devotees, our movement fell down. They seemingly were practicing in 24 hours a day. They were associating with Prabhupada even. They were directly with Prabhupada. But they even had knowledge. They even have knowledge, right? So I said bhakti encompasses knowledge and austerity. So it's not necessarily knowledge, it's the austerity. In the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is mentioned this austerity of speech, right? And the purport of Prabhupada writes that austerity of speech means always conversing about Krishna, using your tongue to serve Krishna 24 hours a day, right? And when you fail to have this austerity of speech, when you fail to control your tongue in speaking about topics of Krishna, you become swept away by the most material nature. You fall down. But the reason why the devotees, Prabhupada writes the devotees don't fall down because they have fully perfected this austerity of speech. Rupa Goswami also talks about this austerity of speech. Chandan, you quoted this, Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Dharapasa Vegam, that this austerity of speech is literally the first instruction of nectar instruction. This austerity of speech is very important. It's very important. And then, and the thing is, austerity, you see that in like Dhruva Maharaj, even the Haryashvas, they perform this austerity of, fasting for long times. It even mentions how it's the Savalashvas, the second sons of Daksha, they only ate air for like months. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And Dhruva Maharaj also did that. So this is the austerities in previous yugas. We can't do this. Like, the only austerity we have to do is follow the four regs, right? That's more or less all austerity. But people think, okay, I'm not grossly engaged in this sex. I've conquered that austerity. It's more to that, because in the Brahmacharya Christian consciousness, is only Bhakti Swami Maharaj mentions that the different levels of Brahmacharya, and how even thinking about women can be considered illicit sex. So even thinking, you might not be grossly engaged in illicit sex, but by thinking about women, by thinking about accumulation, all this other stuff, how to enamor women, how to be attracted to women, all this other stuff, this can be considered illicit sex. On the subtle platform, it could be considered illicit sex. You might not have a reaction for it because in previous ages you get reactions for your thoughts, right? But in this age you don't. What's interesting, actually, you get reactions for positive thoughts, because there's one pastime in the Chaitanya Charitamrita how the I forget his name, but the Brahmana, he was meditating. What was it? Was it Nrsimha? Nrishimananda? Yeah, Nrsimha Brahmachari. Yeah, Nrsimha Brahmachari. It mentions how he couldn't physically be with the Lord, but when the Lord, he was meditating on how to make arrangements for the Lord to go from. I'm like really messing up the story bad, but the point is, the story.
Yeah,
He went to different
path in his mind.
Yeah, where was the Lord? Where was he going? I don't remember it. Anyways, I don't remember where the Lord was going, but the Lord Chaitanya was traveling. I think it was supposed to go to Vrindavan actually. Anyways, but Nrsimha Brahmachari, he was meditating in his mind how to.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, he was meditating in his mind how to make arrangements for Lord Chaitanya. Yeah, I think it's either Madhya. I don't remember. Anyways, I think it's Madhya actually, bro. But anyways, he was mentioning how, he was meditating on how to make arrangements for the Lord to go to the holy place, right? And it's probably mentions that he got benefit by doing so. So in this age of Kali, you actually get benefit by meditating on how to please the Lord mentally, right? But he's so merciful that you don't get the opposite. You don't get like sinful reactions, right? By meditating on like sense gratification, like in previous ages. Actually, in that story of Parashuram, what's his name? What's his dad's name? What's the dad's name in Parashuram? What's his name? How am I forgetting this? Jamadagni, and his wife's name is Ramuna.
I don't remember the wife.
I think it's Ramuna. Anyways, Jamadagni was he's such an expert mystic that his wife went out to collect like some like firewood or something, and she had an inclination to enjoy with this demigod, and he called her a sinful woman. And that age, like, it was sinful actually, because she had the desire to enjoy it, and it was sinful. Anyways, the point I'm making is that in this age, the austerity of speech and austerity of the mind, it consists of always thinking about Krishna. And when you can fully practice this austerity of speech, you naturally the austerity of the mind follows. It's not that, oh, okay, I can speak all nonsense and then I won't think of sex. It's not true. You like once you start speaking nonsense, you see naturally like the sex desire gradually just creeps up on you. It's really mystical how that happens actually, you know. So yeah, you have to have this austerity of speech and this and it runs parallel with cultivation of knowledge. And by that, you will never fall down. You will never fall down as long as you are fully perfect in austerity and knowledge, right? And your intelligence is fixed. Your intelligence has to be fixed. If your intelligence is not fixed, you just be swayed by the modes of material nature always, you know. But when your intelligence is fixed, then even if you try, even if your intelligence is not fixed, just try. Didami buddhi yogam tam. Just try. Just have the endeavor. Krishna will help you. Krishna, Bhadvikasa Swami, he makes the point that he said, what is sincerity? Just anya abhilasita sunyam. He says, by having the pure desire to serve Krishna, you're sincere. Even if you have all these hang-ups, even if you have all these misconceptions, even if you have these sex desires, if you just have a pure desire to serve Krishna, he will help you. He'll give you intelligence. Dhammi buddhi yogam tam. He'll give you intelligence to come to him. Prabhupada also makes a point in his purport how he talks about the conversation between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya. And the first Lord Ramananda Roy, he says, because Lord Chaitanya asks him, like, what's the highest level of Krishna consciousness? I'm summarizing, paraphrasing. And Ramananda Roy first says, Varnashram Dharma. And side note, it's not that some people, I've actually talked to, some devotees, and they be like, oh, well, Lord Chaitanya, he rejected, Varnashram Dharma, and Ramananda Roy said it. The thing is, if you read that purport, Prabhupada actually makes the point that Varnashram Dharma is necessary in society, right? It's necessary for those who are not fully perfect, those who mention this purport, how they're fully fixed in their intelligence in Krishna. If they're not fully fixed, then Varnashram Dharma is necessary. But there's some bogus people who say, oh, Lord Chaitanya rejected Varnashram Dharma from Ramananda Roy, so we should also reject it. We don't need it. It's rascaldom. That's why if you don't read Prabhupada's purports, then you'll just be lost. If you read that purport, read the purport where even Lord Chaitanya rejects Varnashram Dharma. Read the purport. Prabhupada is glorifying Varnashram Dharma. He's saying no, it needs to be installed in society. But anyways, so he rejects that, and then he talks about karma yoga, jnana yoga. But then ultimately he mentions how the highest perfection is to chant in association of devotees and to hear from the devotees. And Lord Chaitanya says, this is perfect. And Prabhupada says that this is a basic principle of perfection. The basic principle of perfection is being with devotees and hearing about Krishna daily. This is basic. Sadhana bhakti. The basic principle is being with devotees, coming to Bhagavatam class, chanting around. This is very basic. But ultimately, we shouldn't be satisfied with the basic platform of Krishna consciousness. Because we're not striving for that. We're striving for the highest thing. The highest thing is to always remember Krishna 24/7 without deviation. This is the highest thing, right? And the devotee mentions in the purport today that the devotee is not even satisfied to even have the same opulences as Narayana. A pure devotee of Krishna, more or less. It's not that Sri Vaishnavas are not devotees because they have the opulences of Krishna. It's not like that. The Prabhupada is making the point that the pure devotees of Krishna, they don't want to be on that planet with Narayana. They want to fully be with Krishna because in Vrindavan, all the opulences are manifested there. I was just reading Chaitanya Charitamrita how Srivas Thakur, he was he's in the mood of Narada Muni, and this is like Rath Yatra. So how in Rath Yatra the Jagannath, he goes to the Gambhira, how do you say it? Gambhira. He goes to the Gambhira temple, and that's like the allegorical, not necessarily allegorical, but that's what's the right word for it? That's like a portrayal of Krishna going to Vrindavan. Symbolic. Yeah, it's symbolic, right? Symbolic. It's like symbolic of Krishna going to Vrindavan, right? And
Gundicha,
the Gundicha temple. Sorry, Gundicha. We say Gambhira. The Gundicha temple. Anyways, the point I'm making, I'm just gonna escalate. because I ain't trying to speak too much about it. But pretty much when so Jagannath he pretty much leaves. It's that's symbolic of Dwarka, like Jagannath Puri is symbolic of Dwarka. But then we go to Gundicha Temple is symbolic of Krishna going to Vrindavan. And when that happens, Lakshmi Devi becomes very upset, and she pretty much goes as well. Yeah, she goes as well to chase, and she chastises his Jagannath's servants. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy like event. It's pretty wild. Anyways, the point I'm making is that Narada Muni he sees, or Shiva Thakur in the mood of Narada Muni, he sees the opulences of the goddess of fortune Lakshmi Devi when she comes to the Gundicha temple, and he says, just see how opulent the goddess of fortune is. You see her opulence, you know. She has all these jewels. She's bedecked with so much opulence, right? But then Swoop Damodar chastises Shiva Thakur. Ultimately, this is all Leela. This is transcendental. It's all on the transcendental platform. Not that Shiva Thakur was some mundane devotee. It's not like that. But it's all Leela. Anyways, Swoop Damodar chastises him and says, just see, you don't understand that the opulence of Vrindavan is what millions of times more opulent than the opulence of Vaikuntha. It's million times more opulent. Why? Because, you know, Krishna fully manifests all his rasas there. You know, all the rasas of Krishna manifested in full. He exhibits all the rasas of his devotees in Vrindavan. You know, and we have the opportunity to come to that, and we don't realize how fortunate we are. I mentioned this in another class, but I can't stress this enough that Srila Prabhupada gave us the highest thing. He's giving us the all we have to do is just hang on to the instructions of the predecessor acharyas, and they're taking it to the highest abode in the spiritual sky. But yet we're so ungrateful that we can't even appreciate what Prabhupada has gave us. It's really remarkable that he's given us something so high that even Lakshmi Devi herself, all glory to her, is no offense to her. No offense, she's very exalted. Not even exalted, she's like, you know, like her tattva is pretty confusing. I'm not gonna speak on that, but pretty much like even she can't even relish the happiness of Vrindavan because she does, it's not her swabhava. She's in the mood of awe and reverence. she can't even relish the happiness that we can relish, right? In the 11th canto, it even says that Uddhava, you know, Uddhava is speaking to Krishna. Krishna says that, oh Uddhava, even Lakshmi, you know, even you're more dear to me than even Lakshmi Devi, right? So even Uddhava is more dear to Krishna than Lakshmi Devi. Like I said, it's not offense on Lakshmi Devi. It's not. It's just the point that, is that what Prabhupada is giving us, it's so special, but we have to be at least attracted by the process of sadhana bhakti, and that's just the first step, right? But then we shouldn't remain on that. We should be serious. We should have some sincerity to get rid of our imperfections. And we should realize our intelligence is polluted. If we don't realize our intelligence is polluted, we just come swept away by the most material nature I was saying earlier, right? The stira buddhi is steadiness, is self-intelligence. Prabhupada writes that this stira buddhi is symptomatic of somebody who's steady in Krishna consciousness, right? Because we can be in Bhagavatam class, we can be listening, we can be reading, but then our intelligence becomes deviated. Why? Because of this pratishta. This pratishta covers our intelligence. So we have to be consciously always aware of this false ego, this desire to want to be praised, this desire to want to be great in the material world. As long as we have that, we can't fully relish the bliss of Vrindavan. So, okay, I'm gonna stop here, and I'll open up for any type of like conversation, chastisement, questions anybody might have. Yeah, you're on mute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I had a question, or more of a, I was gonna ask you to clarify, because I heard you said one will never fall down so long as they're exercising austerity and perfect knowledge, or as long as they're exercising austerity. I was trying to like understand.
Okay,
Maybe
so
I think I wasn't like catching what you were saying.
yeah, so in the sixth canto, Prabhupada says that bhakti yoga means practice of knowledge and austerity. Right. So if you want to be fixed in your bhakti, you need both. Prabhupada makes the point you need both knowledge and austerity. Right. And I'm making the point that you can read the books. You like the thing is knowledge just means understanding what matter, spirit, and control are both. Understand what part and parcel of Krishna. And there's different degrees of that. You can go deeper and deeper into the tattva, but ultimately it culminates in that, right? But the austerity is what most people struggle with, actually. I mean, well, because of people's lack of austerity, they don't even want to, not even inclined to even read the books. But that's another point. But only the point is that the point I was making that is when you don't have proper austerity, then you fall down. Because Prabhupada he makes that point that in this purport, I can send it to you, but he makes the point that austerity in this age of Kali just means following the four regs. But people think that's just it. Okay, I follow the four regs and that's it. But it's more than just following the four regs. It's also in Bhagavad Gita it mentions austerity of speech. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, you are.
In the there's in Lord Kapila's in this teachings of Lord Kapila in text, I think Jnana Vairagya Yuktena Bhakti Yuktena Chatmana Paripashyati Udashinam Prakritim Cha Hataujasam. In that position of self-realization, by practice and knowledge of renunciation and devotion service, one sees everything in the right perspectives. He
Right.
becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him.
Perfect. But where's is that in what canto is that?
This is just that teachings of Lord Kapila book.
Oh, this is Lord teaching.
But
Okay, okay.
it's gonna be teaching. It's gonna be in the obviously it's gonna be in the third canto.
Yeah.
So later in the
Yeah.
third.
Yeah, exactly. That's spot on. Yeah, exactly. I think that I think that verse summarizes exactly what I was saying. That yeah,
There's a lot of verses in Jnana and Vairagya. I just can't remember most of them.
right. Like I said, the influence of material nature acts less powerful than somebody who's fixed in knowledge and vairagya. But ultimately, austerity, like vairagya, renunciation, austerity, a lot of times they can be synonymous. But the point is there that you need both. You need knowledge, austerity, or knowledge, renunciation. You need both to be fixed without falling down.
You also have that verse that Lord Chaitanya's devotees is specifically, in that position of renunciation, that is their foremost quality that they're defined. They're like not defined, but that's like inherent in the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. They're renounced.
Yeah, all of them. Like even like you see like even the Brahmanas, the Grihastas, I mean the Brahmacharis, the Grihastas, all of them, all of the Lord Chaitanya's devotees are all renounced. Like even though seemingly might be different varnas, they're all renounced.
Just one important thing is also that there is emphasis on that jnana and vairagya, they both come as a result of performing bhakti. They're not
Right.
something to endeavor for. That's just important.
Right. I was making that point that like, some people think like, okay, I'll just practice bhakti and not although knowledge renunciation come, I don't need to practice it. But it's not that although they come as a byproduct, right? It's not that we don't also try to cultivate it, right? Like we should also try to cultivate because the thing is, although everything comes with bhakti, it's not that you don't have to practice anything absent of bhakti, right? But when you practice bhakti yoga, although you naturally become renounced and you naturally become austere, you still should practice it. And that was the point I'm making is you should practice austerity. You should practice it by controlling the tongue, speaking only things related to Krishna. And thinking it might be artificial at first, right? I mean, that's the sadhana. Sadhana is ultimately, we're not on the highest platform. So we might be artificially trying to do these things, right? But yeah, you're right. It shouldn't be separate. It should be practiced as a byproduct of bhakti.
One thing is that one way of also understanding this, all those things are present within bhakti. So just like, we see Rupa Goswami, what he's speaking of all these austerities of tongue, and they're not separate from bhakti.
Right.
They're subservient to the principle of bhakti. So at no point is austerity and knowledge separate from bhakti, actually.
Right.
When we're practicing devotional service, they're just a byproduct in the sense that our ultimate goal is Krishna, and every other principle under that, they fall under different categories, perhaps, but they're leading to that. So all of these, and within bhakti, we don't have to go to other shastras to see what austerities that we have to perform.
Right.
So we don't have to go to like different parts of the Vedas to see what austerity we should perform. We just look at Rupa Goswami as our acharya who's teaching us bhakti, and he's telling us these austerities. Why? Because anukulena krishnanu, how does it start? The
Anyam Vilashita Shunyam
yeah,
Vyada
sorry. Sorry, the 6 ways of surrender, how does that begin? Anukulasya sankalpa, pratikulasa varjanam. So one should accept what is favorable and reject what is unfavorable. So certain austerities are unfavorable for Krishna consciousness. So we reject them. Traditionally, you would just fast with no water. Not even water. Actually, Brahmanas, traditionally, Vishnu Chitta Prabhu was telling me that you stop eating midday the day before, and you don't eat or sleep until the midday the day after Ekadashi. That's a Brahman. That's how that's
Yeah.
or traditionally also, you just don't drink any water, and you don't sleep much on
I see.
Ekadashi.
Yeah. Gargle
But
Samhita.
we don't take up, you could take that up, and if you're like on that level, but we don't, because we know it weakens the body and it stops the performance of going on. So the austerities we take upon, similarly the knowledge we take from our acharyas about bhakti. That is the knowledge. So the detachment, sorry, the vairagya, or the austerity, tapasa, as Rishabh Dev says, that is divya, that this tapasya has to be divine austerity. So only austerity, Krishna says later, different austerities in the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness.
Yeah.
Were just smacked into a
Oh
thing
my
with
goodness.
into one of the but austerity specifically should be done in the mode of goodness, but also in the mode of within devotional service. Okay, is it prescribed? Am I going too far? We see some devotees doing it for devotional, but they're destroying their body even sometimes. So austerities have to be taken, but they have to be taken in guidance under devotional service. So it can't be separate from like, okay, now I need to cultivate this type of austerity. No. It should be only done under enhancing our devotional service, not to try to gain anything else. That's just the main point.
Yeah, it's easy to get bewildered by that, because that's a good point. You think you just,
And just vairagya and tapasya are slightly two different things. Renunciation and so they're
the
not exactly the
renunciation.
same.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because it's like they're different, but like it seems like, for example, like renunciation and tapasya, like, because ultimately, like, austerity just means like giving up something for a higher cause. Prabhupada translates that like you give up something
Yeah.
for a higher spiritual benefit. But then renunciation is kind of the same thing actually. It's like you're giving up, for example, like brahmacharya is renunciation. You're giving up, like family life for something higher. So it seems like, although they're different, it seems like they're very similar. I know they are different, but it seems like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You might have something to say about that.
I think Prabhupada said that tapasya is like not giving up something, but performing something difficult.
Yeah.
For,
Taking upon
something.
a difficulty
Uh,
is tapasya, whereas renunciation is tyaga, means giving up. And
uh,
so austerity, like you said, just to define it, austerity itself is you're undergoing some difficulty to gain something.
right.
Whereas renunciation, tyaga, is you giving up something completely. Now, within that renunciation, there may be some austerity. For example, I give up my family, and now there's some austerity that I don't have the comforts.
Yeah.
But that's a result of renunciation. But when you may take tapasya, you may perform austerity for your family.
I
You may
see.
not give your family up, but you may go and work a job and have to do all of this, and that's tapasya. So tapasya is undergoing some difficulty in order to gain some result, whereas
Yeah, I see. It seems like they can.
renunciation
It seems
is
like
giving up the result completely.
it seems like they're different. They can overlap at times. I see. I
Yeah,
see what you're
yeah.
saying. Yeah, they can overlap. Okay. I think Rishi Kumar Prabhu has something.
I just thought that was a really fired up class. But no, you were making these nice points about not speaking nonsense and controlling the tongue, and how that's like the first thing,
Yeah.
which is sometimes hard to accept. Because then it's like, it's like hard to accept. I'm speaking nonsense. I've been speaking so much nonsense.
Yeah,
It's hard. It's like, okay, I'm not doing the first thing. I thought, I've been around for some. I gave this many books to this person and that person, and doing all these different things. But no, I'm not speaking on it. That's a little hard, it's a little hard to accept. But then I was thinking, after we accept it, then how do we figure out like why am I speaking nonsense? Because there's different things that came up. I was thinking, there's one is if we're not hearing enough, if we just hear more about Krishna and in Prabhupada's books, philosophy, then we're contemplating it, and then when we speak about it. A couple different things. Anyway, I'm sure many devotees have many different solutions on how to control the tongue, but the one I just wanted to mention.
I don't know, I feel like.
You ever say something?
Yeah. There's probably many different solutions, but I was wondering, why does it happen? And I was thinking, well, who speaks nonsense? And I'm not just trying to call people out. You, no. Who speaks nonsense in the Bhagavatam?
Who speaks nonsense?
I was remembering the Yadus in the Bhagavatam are famous for speaking nonsense towards the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh yeah, 11th canto.
Yeah. The young Yadu boys,
yeah.
they go up to the sages, Narada Muni, and all these other
like, mess
great
with, like,
sages,
pregnant or
and they pull a prank on the sages, and for that they get in so much trouble. So,
That's so crazy.
why are they speaking nonsense? One thing is they were puffed up. The Yadus were puffed up.
So when you're puffed up, you speak nonsense.
And we hear that statement sometimes when someone gets like out of hand, or they're asked, where do you get the confidence to say this? So we see that with the Yadus, because they're puffed up, they're thinking they can say whatever, and it's okay. I'm so powerful. What's gonna happen? If you hear how powerful they were, it's insane. Like I was hearing in the Garga Samhita, their horses. It's speaking of all these different horses that the different warriors have, and then it's like these warriors have the horses from Panchala area. These warriors have the horses from what's like now modern-day Gujarat, and they can run fast. But then it goes to, and the Yadus, they've got horses from Vaikuntha, which can run on spider webs, run over water, they just like it's pretty much just like a non-material horse that can just go wherever it wants.
That's freaking crazy.
So they're like completely overpowered, and then you don't worry like. I'm not gonna harm myself by what I'm doing. I've got all the power on. There's no problem. So I guess that's one source of it, is being puffed up.
That's a good.
The Yadus.
I don't know. Like maybe. I mean, I think it's a good point, because it's like we take prasadam together and we laugh. I wouldn't say that's like we speaking nonsense, because even you reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, like devotees are like taking prasadam, they're laughing together. Yeah. And they're talking about Krishna and they're joking. It's not like
insulting each other.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't feel like it's nonsense just because you're bonding with devotees. And it's like a lot of times we'll joke about book distribution and stuff like that.
When Gurumar's talking about this, like how to know where to draw the line, Gurumar just kind of says you just have to see.
Yeah.
Like.
Oh yeah, he did say that.
Because there's a question asked Moses, is like, how do you? It's like it's not such a clear cut thing.
Yeah.
But you can kind of understand through your intelligence and through Paramama, if you're sincere, you can tell.
Yeah.
Like,
It's getting crazy. It's getting out of
like, okay, this is getting a little powerful.
It's getting
It
wild.
doesn't take like a rocket scientist.
Yeah.
It kind of gets like felt.
Yeah, because some of the voters like, because why y'all laughing or prasadam? You can't laugh, you can't joke. It's like no, bro. You see, like the devotees, even Chaitanya Leela, even God himself is joking. It's like, and he's moving the devotee. He's literally showing us, we should laugh and joke with devotees, but. I don't know. It is a thin line. I don't know.
You can feel it, and sometimes you can't, because you're in ignorance, but other devotees can.
I think Rishi's saying a good point. Is like I feel like once you start getting puffed up and you start saying things out of ego, then it's like okay, it's not getting out of
Yeah, then you don't think you're reading Bajapa.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I mean, if we also look at what we're bonding over, that's another thing also, because there's times where we'll take prasad and we're like, all these jokes are going on, and it might be on the topic of book distribution, and because this event might have happened on book distribution, but it's like we might just be bonding because I mean. It's like bondage, not bondage. I mean, we're like bonding.
Yeah, bondage. We're in bondage.
Your binding is bondage.
You're in bondage.
Bonding is bondage.
You're in bondage.
But it might be just because, I have a particular association with the modes of material nature, and this is association with the modes of material nature is something we we have like similar experience from that, and like because anyways, under the realm of like book distribution, we're like making these jokes, and it's like funny because of that. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
we're
yeah,
yeah, but it's like
Everything that happens on book distribution is transcendental.
It's all
Don't be
transcendental.
offensive.
It's no offenses on book
Don't be
distribution.
offensive.
I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm
There's no offenses on book distribution, bro. It's
anyways.
It's all Krishna Lila.
Hey, where are y'all right now?
You can use devotion service just to speak nonsense also.
That's the point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Me and Rishi talk about this thing where like there's this thing where like you can speak like mundane Pajapa, but then like you see you talk about like a bunch of politics, like, and then afterwards you're like, that's why we gotta distribute books. We need to distribute more books. Like this world is suffering. Like to like kind of like dovetail all that. You just Pajapa, you just did bring it around.
You just pull out that card.
You just bring it all full circle. Like that's why we need to apply ourselves to Christian consciousness. Like there's so much Maya in this world. We can't do that.
It's hard, bro. It's a thin line, bro. It's a thin line, bro.
If you just talk about Krishna at the end, it doesn't matter what you said
You
before
say,
that.
man.
As long as you end it with Krishna.
That's it, bro. He looks bewildered.
Sure,
What happened?
Trevor might have more to
You
that
look,
point.
bro. We look like you have more stuff to say, bro. What happened?
No, not me. I was looking at Chana because I thought he was gonna say something else. That's all. He
Oh,
said
okay.
That when the thing is, like you were saying, that it can be an artificial thing in the beginning, just to like begin that platform of like learning to speak about Krishna with the devotees. It is like you said, it is hard because we just come from this, like, we all have guna and karma, and when you get with another person that has the same guna and karma,
Oh,
and
Lord.
it's just like, all right, like you all like the same things, and you get into funny things. And I mean, we're like, Rishi Kumar Prabhu loves making these films, and I love like talking about it. And I was just talking about it, and then all of a sudden, like, we were watching different trailers and all that, and I was like trying to help. So I tried to watch something to just try to help, and I ended up like watching this because I knew some of the clips could match up with probably one movie. I'm not going to mention it, and then
Next thing I know, I watched the whole Marvel.
I just watched the trailer, and then it was like, oh, here's number 2. I was like, okay, I guess number like trailer of 2, and then I was like, what the heck?
And then I downloaded the whole movie.
Oh my God.
Like what it was, and I remember going to Charu, like Charu, like, dude, like what the heck is going on out in the world? Like it's so terrible.
Yeah.
That's why we stick with
Like, but I was just saying that it does require for us to like cultivate that mood of talking. Sometimes we think like, oh, don't try to be a Paramahamsa and talk about Krishna while we're taking prasada.
Yeah. Oh man. God forbid
I
you
don't
talk about Krishna.
I don't think anybody's ever done that.
Shoot.
I wish
One
I
time
got
I read a Krishna book. One time, like a devotee came and was like, "Why are you trying to be some like big high guy? Like, why you? Oh, I'm reading Krishna book. Like, what the hell?"
I remember that, bro. Yeah.
It's important to try to cultivate, and then it may have to be done under certain circumstances, like a devotee. You have to kind of see the atmosphere, because you don't want to like so not everybody's maybe into it, so then you may have to like see who to associate with and kind of like talk with it. There's certain devotees that in my life that I just know, like anytime I talk with them, it's just like Krishna conscious, like there's no nonsense. I just never, like specifically when I talk with Kalki Prabhu, like every time it's just about like something he read or like something about Krishna's pastimes, and it's so nice. And I always feel like, whoa, when I like finish my conversations with him, it's always about that. Like when I talk with him, it's mostly about like, different things he's been reading or I've been reading, and we kind of have like, oh, I feel purified from that. But sometimes you get with the homies, and it's just like you just talk about all sorts of things.
I tell you,
Not the Prabhus, the homies.
The homies. The homies.
Not the Prabhus, when you with the homies. That's the Bob though, bro. You just like, ain't no Prabhu. It's like, no, like, it's just like the homie Bob. Like,
It's
like completely mundane. Yeah, and it's like okay to like if you see devotees that like aren't the best in your spiritual life, to not hang with them all the time,
Yeah.
And like if it's okay if they feel butthurt, like
I can.
It's
You're
true.
down-
I'm thinking of a couple.
that term.
I forgot it last week.
Yeah. Anyways, maybe we should stop the live stream now.
Or do you wanna, I mean, you'll end class
Huh?
there?
Yeah, let's end the class. Let's end the class.
How was it?
Oh god. That's
Okay. In the